For all of us, the COVID-19 crisis has increased our reliance on technology. It was invaluable for work, for school, and also for staying informed or stay in touch with our families or with our other colleagues. But if you want to keep benefiting in the long run from modern products, from consumer electronics such as smartphones, TV sets or computer screens, or our electric cars or the clear energy equipment, it's quite clear that we have to drastically change our approach to critical raw materials. Raw materials will play a hugely important part in our future, especially given the ongoing transition towards green and digital economy, a trend not only accelerated, but one which lies at the heart of our recovery. We need to ensure a secure and sustainable supply of raw materials to meet the needs of clean and digital technologies, including in health sector and the space and defense industries. And we have to avoid them competing with each other for finite resources. And we must be able to prepare for any future disruptions in our value chains. In order to succeed, we must acknowledge some hard truth. Today, Europe is highly dependent on a limited number of non-EU countries for its raw materials, where, for instance, we get between 75 to 100% of most metals from outside EU, while China provides 98% of our supply of rare earth elements. And in the world of tomorrow, this over-reliance may become even more acute. Our strategic foresight tells us that the demand for the raw materials is only going to rise. For example, Europe will need almost 60 times more lithium and 15 times more cobalt by 2050 for electric cars and energy storage alone. Demand for rare earth used in permanent magnets, critical for products like wind generators, could increase tenfold in the same period. The simple truth also is that we are largely dependent on unsustainable raw materials from countries with much lower environmental and social standards, less freedoms, or unstable economies. Therefore, today's action plan outlines concrete steps we are taking in response altogether, and I believe they will help make Europe more resilient and boost our open strategic autonomy in an interdependent world. And in a moment, Commissioner Breton will elaborate on this subject. I would like to underline that we cannot replace our current reliance on fossil fuels with one on critical raw materials. In practice, this means we need to diversify supply and make better use of the resources available within the European Union, where we would apply the highest environmental and social standards to that effect. We also need to scale up reuse, repair, and recycling of products. We must support innovation for alternatives and resource efficiency. And finally, we need to engage in a strategic trade policy and economic diplomacy. To help achieve this, together with Thierry, we will launch a European Raw Material Alliance later this month. It will be modeled on the highly successful European Battery Alliance, a clear example of the EU making good use of the strategic foresight. For instance, under the EU Battery Alliance, we are already substantially boosting our domestic capacities in the lithium industry. For key industrial projects in sustainable mining and processing totaling almost 2 billion euros are underway here in Europe. They are expected to cover 80% of our lithium needs in the battery sector by 2025 already. And just to compare, this would help reduce our over-reliance on Chile, which currently provides some 78% of our overall needs. Based on its changed economic importance, lithium has today been added to the 2020 list of the critical raw materials for the first time. All this has inspired our ambition to cover other raw materials essential for European value chains in many more strategic sectors. So building on what we have learned, the Raw Materials Alliance will mobilize industrial and innovation actors, member states, regions, the EIB, investors, social partners, and civil society in order to help build our capacities along the entire value chains, from mining to waste recovery. And the task will be to identify bottlenecks, opportunities, and investment cases or projects that should be operational by 2025. Strategic foresight will be contributing continuously. As part of it, we look at vulnerabilities and capacities of member states in relation to raw materials, especially how member states put in place policies that increase our resilience. This shows us that, for instance, the recycling rate of the electronic waste is among strong points across many countries. Every year, 9.9 million tons of waste, electrical and electronic equipment is generated in the European Union. Around 30% is collected and recycled. But the recovery of the critical raw materials from this e-waste stands below 1%. Exploiting these urban mines, that is, recovering raw materials from urban waste through recycling, could eventually satisfy a large share of the EU demand for critical raw materials. Let me conclude by underlying that raw materials are vital for growing and modernizing our economies in a sustainable way, especially in the context of recovery from this pandemic. I would therefore appeal that we make full use of our recovery instruments here, because this is our chance to do more than just a quick fix or applying a band-aid. We must take strategic action that will result in long-lasting changes and in Europe being economically as well as geopolitically more resilient. Thank you.